Hi there. Today I'm going to show you how to check to see if a race is starting in stalls or not. I'm going to use a similar technique that I employed when checking to see if a live score data feed is available in football. You can check that video out if you browse through the how-to playlist. But essentially we're going to look at the same thing. We're going to create a rule that sets up a condition that will cause an error if stalls aren't present. Now I could just go straight to that and set up a rule and finish the video there, but where's the fun in that? So we're going to create a complete strategy. So you'll see from the screen here I've set up an initial strategy called pre-race Dutch trade, and the idea with this is that we're going to place a Dutch on a certain number of runners, which will vary depending on the number of runners in the field. That Dutch is going to be placed 2 minutes before the off. We're going to have a green up, looking for a green up of profit of 5%. And then in addition to that, once we hit the scheduled off time and the runners are either down at the post for a long race or going behind in a short race where there's stalls involved, we will trade out irrespective of our trading out position. But in order to do that, we need a mechanism to identify if there's stalls involved. So you'll see here we've got 3 rules set up already. The first one's self-explanatory: switch to this market. It just means that Fairbot will load this and display this market, as I've set here, 2 minutes before the event is due to start. And then I've got 2 separate rules which will simply play a sound file. The first one plays a message at the post, and the second one plays a message going behind. Now it's important to recognise that every race will have a at the post message, but only those races that involve stalls has a going behind message, and we're actually going to use that as part of our decision making process. So it's important that these rules are here, apart from the fact it just gives a little sound notification of the status before the off. So the first rule that we're going to add in is the rule that's going to detect whether there's stalls involved. So is it a stalls start? And we'll set this to start off at 2 minutes. The action is going to be dummy, it doesn't need to do anything, but we do need a condition, and the condition we're going to use is the selection fixed odds. And we're going to look at or sort our selection by stall draw, and we're going to look at draw number 1 or stall number 1, and we are going to check that the odds for stall number 1 is greater than or equal to 1.01. In other words, that's bound to be true if there's a stall involved. Okay, so this rule is going to kick in 2 minutes before the off. It's going to check for the price of the horse in stall 1, and when it finds that, that's simply going to execute. That rule will fire, and so its execution count will be 1. Now if there's no stalls involved, this condition will cause an error, and consequently this rule cannot fire, so its execution count will be 0, and that's what we're going to use later on in the strategy. Okay, so we're going to first of all create 2 separate Dutching rules. The first one is we are going to Dutch runners 2 to 4. So that's going to be the 2nd, 3rd and 4th favourite, where field size is, let's say, 5 to 8. So that's going to kick in at 2 minutes. Now I'm going to set this to in seconds rather than minutes, because I want to do a stop at 100 seconds before the off. In other words, this rule has 20 seconds to fire. Now the reason I'm going to do that is in a minute I'm going to put in a condition for the book price, for the percentage book price. And it may be that that condition isn't met initially at the 2-minute mark. And if I didn't do a stop, this rule would still be active, and so it may still fire later on as the odds chop and change. And by which time it might be too late and I might not want that to happen. So I'm going to give it a 20-second window for it to fire in that Dutch. So the action is going to be Dutching. Let's just stick in our usual £100. We're going to sort this by back odds, ascending. We need the indexes to be 2, 3 and 4. The easiest way to do that is to do 2-4. Let's ask for an extra tick and switch to the conditions. So our conditions are going to be, first of all, we need to check the number of selections. So we want that to be greater than or equal to 5, but we also need another one of these to be less than or equal to 8. And in addition to that, we need our market book percentage. Let's put it less than 70% as our first guess. And we need to specify our indices again, which of course was 2-4. And that's it for this. Yep, that's okay. So now we're going to duplicate that. And we're going to create another Dutch, which will fire and Dutch between 3 and 6. In other words, the 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th favourite in the situation where there are 9 to 14 runners. And again, everything else will be the same, except of course we need to change the indices here. So that's going to be 3 to 6. Still looking for an extra tick. We need to change the conditions. That's going to be 9. That's going to be 14. And this needs to be 3 to 6. All well and good. So, only one of these Dutches will fire. So if the field size is between 5 and 8, this one will fire. If it's 9 to 14, this one will fire. And if it's outside that range, so in other words less than 5 and greater than 14, neither of these will fire and no involvement will happen in this race. We need to add in a green up rule. So we're going to green up, our stake is £100, let's just green up for a £5 since this is a pre-race thing. So that needs to be 2 minutes. That's all good. We need to green up all, and the conditions will be market green up P&L needs to be greater than 5. That should be it for that rule. But we also need to create 2 rules which will trade out irrespective of what our trading out position is. We need one that will trade out as the runners are going behind, in other words in a race where the stalls are involved, and we need another one that will trade out when the runners are at the post. Keep in mind that longer races have an at the post message, as do shorter races, but the longer races do not have a going behind signal, whereas the shorter races do when there's stalls involved. Okay, so let's just create another rule. So I do trade out when behind, so this is going to be for stalls. And again, we need to do this relative to start time, but it's going to be 0 is our start time in this particular case. The action is going to be green up all selections. We don't want a condition in terms of actual P&L. We're just greening up irrespective of whatever our position is going to be. We just want to get out of the trade before it goes in play. However, we do want to check, since we're looking at stalls, we need to check that the going behind message has fired. So that should be equal to 1. And we also want to check that the is it a stall start is also equal to 1. So in other words, this rule will only fire in the event that there's stalls involved, and it will hold on until the runners have gone behind and started to load. We also need to create another one very similar to this. Again, let me just copy and paste that. So we just trade out when they're at the tape and about to go. Again, we need to have hit the post time. The action is going to be giving up all selections as before. The conditions are going to be different, however. This one, the first one, should be at the post. And that should be equal to 1. The number of executions is at a stall start. That which needs to be equal to 0. Okay, so let me just recap. This one here will trigger when the at the post message has fired and we've hit post time. And this one will fire only when the going behind message has fired and we've hit post time, and of course the stall start has been confirmed as being the case for that race. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is it. Quickly scan over that, don't see anything, any other issues. Okay, so the important ones are these three rules up here. Okay, all of these rules are used to determine how we trade out in the event that we haven't greened up. So although on the face of it, these two here are simply going to play an audio message for information purposes, we can then use the execution count to determine when the trade out process happens. Now, as far as these sounds are concerned, at the post and going behind, those have been recorded by myself. If you again go to the how-to playlist, there's a video that shows you how to set those up and record them and store them so that Fairbot are able to access them. So make use of that as well. Okay guys, that's it. We've got 40 minutes to hang on to the next race, so I won't bother recording this against this coming up race. Try it, you see, there's all the settings for you to screenshot and apply as you will. And I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.